I want to share with you today is about Halloween. And it's about more than Halloween, it's about holidays, but it's very specifically about Halloween. And in my experience as a mom raising two neurodiverse kids, Halloween has always been the start of hell at our house, if you will. And the reason is that one of my children, both have autism, but one who has autism that requires a little bit more support, has always seen Halloween as an opportunity to script, not to dress up, not to be in costume, but to script and to genuinely, truly be a firefighter or a Coast Guard swimmer or a rescue dog trainer. And so over the years, this has led to a tremendous amount of stress in terms of what is exactly the right, we can't call it a costume, we can call it a uniform, right? And then all of the accompanying equipment for that year's uniform, if you will. So helping him to understand that Halloween is a time to dress up in costume and have fun doing this is really quite a stretch for him. And so he's 15 now, and this year at the end of trick-or-treating, I came home and I wrote a blog for the blog that we have on russellcoaching.com. And I just really talked about how I hate Halloween. I hate Halloween, and how Halloween to me is the beginning of the holidays, all of which are dysregulating and anxiety provoking, and how much work it is to try to help your neurodiverse children stay regulated and understand, especially when they're younger, what's going on, but even sometimes when they are teenagers or adolescents, and how very difficult it is to find people who truly get how dysregulating and exhausting the holidays are, and the sense of shame that goes along with that. And I wrote a very long blog from my heart about, I don't want to hate Halloween. I don't want to hate the holidays, but that's really what my experience as a mom has been with two neurodiverse kids, that the holidays are genuinely exhausting, and that for so many reasons, I am excited when it is January 1 and the holidays are behind us.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Gina.
And this is Don.
With Focused Healthy Family.
This is podcast number 102. And today we're meeting with Dr. Norrine Russell from Russell Coaching. But before we get into that, we want to take just a short break for our sponsor.
Our sponsor is Q Sciences. I've been a representative for Q Sciences for over a year. I found this company through a friend and did some research and reading about these products. And I really liked what I found when I learned about them, the research and time that they've put into the quality of these products to be better absorbed into the body. Things like the vitamin D spray. Our youngest was on a capsule vitamin D, and yet vitamin D levels remained the same with follow-up checkups. And with the spray, it increased.
Pretty strong.
Almost double.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're talking her levels were maybe 20, and I want to say they went up to 47 or something around that range. And the sleep spray is another great one. It's got melatonin, 5-HTP, and I believe another herbal supplement in there. And because it's a spray, you spray it on your tongue, it gets absorbed more quickly into your body to be more effective to help you in the moment. We're using the B12 spray. We've used the vitamin C spray. They have a Q Max product, which is a multivitamin.
And they also have the CBD, different, a variety of different,
It's full spectrum
full
hemp
spectrum, yes.
oils. They even have a THC free version. It comes in different flavors. There is a mushroom
Oh, yeah.
armor. It's called Q Armor. It's a powder, and I get the chai flavor. Put it in my chai tea for a double chai drink.
So instead of, as they say, flushing your supplements down, well, the toilet or the drain, you want to get something like this that's fully absorbed. It's like flushing money down the toilet too, if you're not using a supplement that absorbs well and does well for your body. So that's what Q Science is really about. It's a good, well absorbed, high nutrient product.
They have multiple products. They have child specific products. They now also have some facial cream products. I've been using a night cream to minimize the effects of sunlight and stress and aging on my skin. And they have a hemp lotion. That's also a wonderful product that we've tried. So check us out, learn more. You can find the link at our website,
www.focusedhealthyfamily.com. You can also go to focusedhealthyfamily.com/Q Sciences, the letter Q and Sciences
with an S at the end.
with the S at the end. Yes.
And we're back. Thank you, Dr. Russell, for being here today and sharing your story. I can so relate to dreading Halloween and the holidays, of how dysregulating they really are. We have 3 neurodiverse children ourselves, and what for some kids is a simple, easy, fun time turns out to be everything but that for some other kids. So appreciate you sharing the honesty with that. And thank you for being here.
You're welcome. I'm delighted to be here and talk with 2 of you again.
Go ahead.
Do you want to?
Go ahead.
Oh, well, just to read a little, I got a little bit of your, so Dr. Norrine Russell is the founder of Russell Coaching for Students, which uses innovative methods of coaching for complex students, including those that are 2E, have ADHD, autism, and anxiety, and those learning differences. She is the author of a recent published guide for parents, asking the right questions before, during, and after your child's ADHD diagnosis. With 20 years of experience in creating positive youth development and parenting education programs, Dr. Russell has extensive knowledge of child development, learning styles, special needs, and positive parenting philosophies. She blends this knowledge to provide students and parents with comprehensive support and tools they need to grow and thrive. So again, welcome to you, Dr. Russell. We're glad you're here.
I'm happy to be. There's so much to talk about with these topics of kids who are neurodiverse. I think there is so much that even in an age where we think there is so much more media coverage and so much more scientific information, every day I talk with parents who don't know what they need to know about certainly the 3 diagnoses that we deal with most frequently: ADHD, autism, and anxiety. And I'm glad for podcasts like yours who are reaching parents, because I just think there is so very much that parents don't know that they should know about ADHD, autism, and anxiety.
Well, and there's so much complexity to each one of the different diagnoses, or whatever you want to call it, that it makes a lot to even understand. Even for us, it's taken a long time to understand the different things that are going on for our kids. And I still think we got a lot to learn, you know.
And that's even with a background in occupational therapy and having some knowledge and education in that area. It's still obviously different when it's your child, and recognizing what their needs are and making sure they're getting the support that they need, and understanding and the power of understanding the diagnoses just to know how to get the support. Um,
Well, and
Yeah,
I think a great place, if you will, to start our conversation, is the power of a diagnosis, right? It's funny how in mental health or in neurodevelopmental disorders, many people still shy away from the process of evaluation. And I really wish that we could, as a culture, move a lot closer to the type of diagnostic process we use if we're not sure if a child has a hearing problem, or we're not sure if they have a broken bone, right? If we're not sure, get an evaluation. Getting an evaluation isn't going to create a mood disorder or ADHD, right? And so I think that's one of the things that I really hope will be pushed in terms of public service and policy over the next 10 years. Is it's so very important. If you're not sure, if you have concerns, get a diagnosis. If the answer is, you know what, we don't see evidence of a mood disorder or autism, then okay. But if you're not sure, or if there are some signs, go get an evaluation, figure out what is going on.
and I can speak to that as our older daughter, when she showed signs of OCD, I didn't want to label her, and was doing everything to get the help she needed. But it took me a while to realize that we needed that so that she could label it and see this was not, really her. There was something happening in her brain that wasn't operating correctly. And so I realized after the fact, the power of having that and then getting the right type of therapy when you're diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, and how important that is.
well, and then also what makes it like, again, adding the complexity of it is you also have to find the right person who understands this to be able to evaluate, like especially with OCD, you really have to have a therapist that understands OCD
To treat it.
to treat it.
Yeah.
Well, I think even to
You can do it
analyze it, it's a little difficult, can be difficult. So that brings, like I say, more complexity to it.
Yeah, knowing where to go.
I mean, the treatment piece is the first part, right? Is having a clinician who is skilled to do that. Now, theoretically, a psychologist or a psychiatrist should be able to do that. Sometimes the signs aren't always clear, right? And so we don't see it, or there are other things going on that can kind of mask what might be going on. And so sometimes the process of discovering a diagnosis happens over a period of a year or 2 years or several years, because there might be more than one thing going on. And so that too, I think, is such an important public service message, that people can be very complex, and that mental health can be very complex. And so, if you do get a diagnosis and you think, oh, it feels like something else is going on, or it feels like something more is going on, go back, advocate, ask questions, educate. I think for me, because I don't work on the diagnostic side, I work on the intervention side of things. To me, it's so important that we at Russell Coaching understand what is the diagnosis, what is the cognitive profile of this child, what is the social and emotional makeup of this child, so that we can get as fast a start as possible with coaching. And so, I'm hoping that our whole world is kind of going to grow out of that idea of, oh, we're labeling the child. No, we're getting an accurate, scientific, evidence-based best practices diagnosis, which should lead to treatment, right? And so that's, I think, a very important message for the next 10 years.
I agree. And I love the example you give of, determining if they have a broken bone. I don't want to label my child, broken leg. I mean, well, yes, you'd want to do that. It sounds silly when you put it in those terms. And yet we have a different mindset when it comes to, mental health and these other things. So
And the
So,
interesting thing that's happening these days is because so many preteens and teens are on social media and there's so much information about mental health on there, is we are seeing that stigma very quickly evaporate in that age group and that generation. And kids, teenagers are coming to their parents and they're saying, I think I have autism. I think I have depression. I think I have ADHD, you know? And parents, of course, react in a variety of different ways to this. But I think that this generation that is currently tweens and teens, is going to radically reshape how we think about mental health and the openness of it. And so, those of us who are parents and professionals have to acknowledge the reality of this. Kids are getting all kinds of information. And then I think it becomes even more important for parents.
Nope.
Oh, you think you have ADHD? Tell me, I want to learn also. And then figure out, okay, and then how do we go to a licensed professional?
well, and I wonder too, and this is kind of on the other side of it, but one of the things we found out with mental illness, when you have a sickness like cancer or a body illness of some sort, your friends and all come to you with food or help and do things and want to help you, the mental side of it, when you have a disorder or something go on, they do the opposite. They spread, they kind of not run away, but they're too afraid to try to help or call or anything like that. And I'm wondering if that will change too, with more and more of like the social media and all of that, and these kids that are growing up learning about it and accepting what they have, whether it'll change it on that side of it too.
I hope so. I hope so. And I hope that more support will become available. One of the very clear research findings for families who have a child or more than one child with ADHD is that the level of stress is exorbitant. Raising a child with ADHD is incredibly stressful. And, from the time that child is small and in preschool or elementary school, the parents are feeling the difference between their child and other children. And then as it grows older, depending on what kind of symptoms emerge, you can feel even more isolated. I think there are some wonderful places that are starting to emerge that are virtual groups and virtual support groups. And there are some places that have, grassroots in-person places. But honestly, I think that too is something that we are going to need real leadership from mental health professional associations and from the American Academy for Pediatrics. How do we provide parents with support for raising kids who are neurodiverse? Going into the pediatrician and hearing, make sure you take care of yourself too, is not enough. It's just not enough. But how do we solve this on a more systemic level, right? I mean, as a middle-aged person, I go to the doctor. Nobody even asks me, how is parenting going, and I'm still actively parenting 2 teenagers, shouldn't that possibly be part of your regular annual check-in with your internist or whoever you see as a doctor? There are ways that we need to address this from a systemic point of view, whether it's in the medical community, whether it's in the medical health community, whether it's in the church and spiritual community. But the way that we're doing it now, where everybody individually is having to find support for what they need, that's not working.
Yeah, it got me thinking about, I see a psychiatrist, and when I have an appointment with her, I fill out anxiety and a depression screening, but now they've added a screening as far as financial situation. You know, do I feel like I'm not going to have enough food for my family, and those kinds of questions, as well as abuse questionnaire. But it's like, yeah, we need to add on there, you struggle with, you know, parenting or with, you know, behaviors of your children. Like that needs to be a whole nother component, because it
Yep, it absolutely does. And we don't have that incorporated into our culture yet.
no.
That parents who are raising kids with a neurodevelopmental diagnosis, or that have, you know, some diagnosis that fits under the category of neurodiversity, we don't have that in our heads as a culture, that those parents need specific kinds of support and specific kinds of education, and that we as a culture have an obligation to try to work toward that. You know, I mean, it doesn't help when the person I know who is raising kids most similar to me is across the country in California, and we don't have time to talk to each other because we're busy raising our kids, right? You know, so what can we do there? And I really think it has to start in the medical community. I really do. You know, there needs to be a complete revamping of how do we check in with middle-aged people who are parenting, and in particular, parenting neurodiverse kids. It's stressful. The literature is clear. It's very stressful, and it's very expensive, which creates additional stress. You know, the average kid with ADHD, on average, the costs are $60,000 a year.
Wow.
Well, you know, and what's one of the things that's evolved with us since I think the last time we've talked is that we also are moving some to the what's called the sandwich generation. It's the parents that are sandwiched between raising their kids and taking care of their elderly parents. We're getting a more and more, that's a growing generation because of, you know, people waiting later to have kids, waiting later to get married.
People living longer. Like I'm right now, I have my parents in their 80s, and my father's dealing with Parkinson's and dementia. And I still have a 15-year-old at home, and even our 20-year-olds we support in other ways. So yeah, it adds a whole nother level. And like you said, where is that support coming from? You know, people think, oh, you're in your 50s now, you're good. You're
Yeah, yeah.
no one's asking you.
You're laying back, relaxing, you know, going to the beach. You know, no.
Those questions, and you know, talking about the cost of ADHD care, mental health care, to get really good quality stuff, it's usually private pay. We looked into a program for one of our kids, and
Oh yeah, that well, it was down in Florida too.
You're talking like $25,000 for an initial fee, and it's like you're really eliminating so many people that need that help in those programs.
I mean, all total, if because we would have had to move down there for 3 months, you know, somehow. I think I calculated somewhere between $60,000 to $70,000 it would have cost us, and that's just if everything went well. You know, if progressed through it and made it through it. So it was just almost impossible, and insurance didn't even come close to it. Didn't even try.
I think part of the challenge is these providers are stepping outside the insurance model, because in order to give the best care that they can, it helps them to be outside that model, but then it leaves so many people unable to do this. And it's really unfortunate, because there are some really great programs and support out there, but when cost is a factor.
Cost is a factor, accessibility is a factor. I mean, anybody who has a kid with ADHD knows that we're going on, you know, the third or the fourth year of medication shortages. And this is a basic medication that a kid with ADHD is prescribed and takes every day. And when you are every 30 days running around from pharmacy to pharmacy trying to find the medication, you know, that's the last thing we need, right? And it's the last thing we would need no matter what the prescription is. But there are prescriptions, as you that have real shortages, and ADHD medication has been one of those now for quite some time, and it's an additional stress. And then you add to that the fact that most parents really, I believe, don't get enough information on medication and treatment and how it's supposed to work. And so it's very hard to keep going and to be motivated to track down that medication and to run from place to place when you're like, well, do I really want to be giving this, anyway? We have a long way to go in terms of helping parents truly be the advocates that we have to be as moms and dads, but we don't have the information that we need.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we personally have spent a lot of time just researching and looking into things, but parents need to know what questions to ask and where to go to ask these questions. You're right, because the doctor will prescribe a medicine, but not necessarily give a whole lot of information about it to make that decision. And
Well, before we go too much further, let's talk about what your coaching business is and how it works and how it operates and maybe how it addresses some of what we've been talking about. I want to make sure our audience knows more about what you do too.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, we really feel like we have found our niche. What we love to do and what we're so good at is providing parents who have kids with ADHD, autism, anxiety, learning differences, providing those parents with emotional support, yes, but also helping them to craft a roadmap, right? What is your plan of action going to be? What do you need to do now if you have a kid who has ADHD and dyslexia? What do you need to be looking out for during this school year? What might we needing to think about for next summer? And we do this in a way that is, I think, just characterized by so much warmth and love and understanding, because it is hard to be the parent of a kid with learning differences or ADHD. It is hard to have a kid who is falling behind in school. It's hard to have a kid who is refusing to go to school because they don't feel well at school. They feel anxious, feel dissociated. So that's one part of what we do is we offer parents support and guidance and help them to craft a roadmap for their child, right? Because each and every one of these children is specific and individual. If you've met one kid with autism, you've met one kid with autism. One of the things that we know about complex kids who have more than one developmental disorder is they need individualized plans. They do. And then the other half of what we do is work directly with students, which we do all the way from grade 1 through college. And we focus on helping those students build skills in 3 areas. The first is executive functioning skills. And I bet most of your audience knows what those are, but planning, organizing, prioritizing, impulse control, thinking about your thinking, just all of the daily life skills that we need that we have come to call executive functioning skills: planning, prioritizing, organizing. The second area that we work on is learning and study skills. So we know that a lot of kids who are wired differently don't automatically pick up, oh, how should I be learning how to do this, right? It doesn't make any sense to me. I have a list of 20 spelling words in 3rd grade. How am I supposed to learn those things? To some kids, that comes intuitively. I read them. I write my sentences. I read them again. I study them. I figure out which ones I know, which ones I don't know. I say them in my mind. I spell them in my mind. But the thing is, as we know, study habits and study skills do not come naturally to every child. And then thinking about how am I approaching this and how do I do it better, right? That's a tricky part. So that's our second area of focus, is learning and study strategies. And then the third complementary area is social and emotional skills, including coping skills. So while coaching is not therapy, coaching can be very therapeutic. To be heard, to be listened to collaborate with a coach who cares about you and figure out, okay, how am I feeling about this? What is it that stresses me out when I'm at school? And how can I cope with that? So those are the three areas we work in: executive functioning, learning and study skills, and social and emotional skills. And we see about 150 students a week, all of which are atypical in some way. They could be twice exceptional, they could be on the autism spectrum, they could have ADHD, but they're all atypical in some way. And our method, connected coaching, is what we've been using for the last 15 years. And we absolutely love our work and helping students and families push those what seem like sometimes insurmountable roadblocks out of the way and really start to reach their potential.
Well, it sounds like you kind of blend therapy, tutoring, counseling, all into one practice. Would you say that is true?
Well, I want to make sure we stay in our lane, right? But
Okay.
yes, I would say there are certainly aspects of, active listening, of affirmation, of hearing the student, of, working collaboratively, of, the tutoring piece in the sense of what is it that we need to get done for you to feel good about school and for you to feel competent and capable. I think that's when you get down to it, what parents say about our method and the coaching we provide is that it decreases family conflict, it increases their students' self-confidence, and it increases grades. And so, yeah, coaching is, such a new field, and I'll be the first person to sound the warning. Coaching is unlicensed. Be sure as you go to look for a coach that you look for someone who has rock solid credentials. But I'm proud of what we've built at Russell Coaching and our model, which is science-based and evidence-based, and that we have been using for quite some time, that's grounded in positive youth development principles. It's grounded in human development. It's grounded in the neurodevelopmental disorders that we work with. So yeah, I think we're in the fortunate position of being able to make a difference in many ways.
I just fascinated learning about it. And just, we talked several years back about this and just want to clarify to the audience, kind of the difference between therapy versus finding a coach. Mm-hmm. So how would you define that?
Yes. So, in broad brushstrokes, right? Therapy is designed to help people develop better mental health, right? It is designed to help people work through or work with mental health diagnoses of all kinds, whether that's an eating disorder, whether it's a mood disorder, whether it's an affective disorder, whether it's, gambling, drug addiction, right? So mental health therapy and coaching is treatment for the very broad range of mental health disorders. Coaching is really skill building for people who are maybe developmentally behind in developing certain skills because of how their brain is wired. Coaching in no way is designed to cure any kind of developmental disorder or to cure anxiety or autism, but it's designed to give someone a framework in which they can self-reflect, they can build goals, and they can develop skills. So, when it comes to ADHD, for example, we're not going to cure ADHD. It's not curable, but we can be part of the solution in the sense of it is possible to learn strategies for how do you set goals? How do you manage time? How do you prioritize what needs to get done? So therapy is very broad. There are different types of therapy for lots and lots of different kinds of mental health problems. And ultimately, at the root of that is, looking to treat the mental illness. Coaching is about building skills and providing support.
Yeah, and it sounds like, how to live with it, have a life with it first, and how to manage it. So do you have something you want?
I just want to reiterate what you're saying. I mean, those skills are so important, and just learning coping strategies and how to deal with difficult situations, because that's going to carry over for a kid into their life as they, get older and participate in different activities and then a job. These are essential skills that, I guess, like you said, come naturally to some kids, but often they don't. And it's not built into the system for them to have that opportunity to learn, how to study, how to take notes, how to prepare for a test, and those kinds of things.
Yeah, I was neurotypical, and I didn't have those skills. So maybe let's talk about your book, because since we talked years ago, you've written a book, and so first, I guess, is what was your thought behind wanting to write a book?
So one of the realizations that I've had over the years is that parents who have a child with ADHD are in a much different role and position than kids who, for example, develop cancer or break a leg, right? Let's take the example of the broken leg. Your kid is out on the recess field or the sports field or the boat or, whatever it might be, and there's an injury, and, the leg hurts. Child goes to the hospital. Hospital professionals, medical professionals decide, oh, do we need to get an x-ray, right? Then other medical professionals read the x-ray, right? They make a determination of, is there a broken bone, right? Then another medical professional makes a decision of, how do we treat that broken bone if it exists? And then they do the follow-up, and then they may release you to another medical professional like an OT or a PT for continued follow-up care, right? At no point during the process of the broken bone scenario are you going, who do I see now? Like, okay, they took the x-ray, but what do I do now? Like, we have a broken bone. Who do I see? At no point are you ever having to ask yourself that as a parent, right? But when you have a kid with ADHD, because there are many different fields that can diagnose ADHD, and then there are many different fields that offer different types of treatment, right? So the American Academy of Pediatrics says medication is first-line treatment, second is parent education, and third is a school plan. Those are three different disciplines right in there, right? And so what is so difficult about ADHD is that as parents, we're the ones driving the bus. I don't know about you, but they barely handed me the parenting manual at the hospital, and they certainly did not hand me the ADHD addendum, right? And so parents would come in, for an intake for coaching, and they would say, no one ever told us that information. No one ever told us to ask the doctor, what's the treatment plan? No one ever told us to ask, what is the most important part of treatment? No one ever said, these are the questions you can take to school. And so I found myself doing so much education with parents and the same stuff over and over again. What questions do you ask before you schedule an evaluation, right? What questions come before the diagnosis? Should I get a diagnosis? Should I get an evaluation? Who can do an evaluation? Even that is complicated in ADHD, right? Then questions to ask during the evaluation. Are you evaluating my child just for ADHD? What else are you looking at? What's the prognosis if he has ADHD, right? What are the questions that you should be asking? Because for some reason, the information just doesn't come to us, right? And then after the diagnosis, what should you be asking? What should you be asking school? What should you be asking a therapist? What should you be asking anyone who's doing the treatment, whether that's an ARNP or a psychiatrist or the pediatrician, right? And we have to advocate, but we can't advocate unless we know what questions to ask. We don't know what questions to ask unless someone says, hey, this is some information you really need to know. So the book is all asking the right questions about ADHD, and it is designed to be a very practical, hands-on guide to becoming the best advocate you can be for your child with ADHD. And it is very clear. You need to get educated, you need to ask questions, and you need to know who to ask the questions of. And so that's what the book is all about, and really helping parents get that information that we're not given.
That's powerful. Your image of, going and getting an x-ray, and they don't just do an x-ray and then hand it to you, and you're supposed to figure out what to do next. And
Yeah,
we had several incidences last year of taking a child to a mental health hospital and dealing with that.
my.
And, it's crazy. It doesn't matter what your diagnosis, they're all thrown in together. And I'm just picturing, people with broken legs and infections and just being thrown in a room and and no specific clinician addressing each person, as needed. So that's just powerful.
Well, and one of the things that I find so frustrating is there's a lot of language that's used, you can decide, you should consider, and I love what's behind that in terms of parent involvement, right? And parent, I guess parent involvement is the best way to put it. But please don't leave decisions in my hands without thoroughly educating me about what the treatment options are, how likely they are to be successful, what are the pros and cons, right? And what might that look like? What might it look like if that doesn't work, right? Don't say, well, parents can consider getting a school plan. Parents can consider seeing a medical professional for education. Parents can consider. Well, sure. And I can consider just throwing your report in the trash and going and having some breakfast at Panera, right? Tell me what is science-based, evidence-based treatment for this child. And tell me what that means when the kid has anxiety and ADHD, when the kid has autism and ADHD. Don't say you can do this or that like you're handing me a menu at a buffet. Tell me what the pros and cons are.
Yeah. And the irony is when our kid was in the hospital, we were the ones telling the professionals, because if you have obsessive compulsive disorder and you go to behavioral health unit, there's no treatment for obsessive compulsive disorder. You're grouped in with everybody else and everybody's mental health issues, which can be so different. And they're not aware of the treatment that needs to be done. And so we're the ones, advocating and saying, look, this is what my kid needs. You're telling me they're just going to stick them in this basic program, but if it's not going to address the OCD, it's really not going to help them. And so, I'm getting very inspired to write a similar manual for parents, knowing what questions to ask.
Well, because it falls into then you become the disgruntled parent that you walk into we'd walk into there and you could I made that might have been my impression of it, but they just like, oh, here they come again, the difficult ones that ask for so much and they don't say advocate, they pester us but we had to. It was
problem parents and they're causing a problem, and I had to go to the higher ups to get action to happen in the emergency department. And it's,
and that put us on the favorable list too.
Things happen fast when you do that, but then they kind of roll their eyes when you come in and, oh no, not you again.
Well, the education level of a lot of the staff and all of that isn't at a point where, well, in a way I can kind of understand it, because they have to understand all the different diagnoses. It's difficult to do. So, but it's kind of it'd be a dichotomy. They really need to, because they need to know what to ask, what to do themselves, the caregivers, a lot of them, the CNAs and stuff that just don't have the level of education needed for what they're doing. They're just taught this is how you do it, and they go do it, and that they don't know how to explain it or any of that. And
Right. And then you're talking about, kids with neurodiversity on top of it, because the kids who come through the mental health system, who knows all the things they have going on. They might have diagnoses that are wrongly put on there because of situational circumstances, but they could also have additional diagnoses. And yeah, so just adding a whole nother layer to that. But yeah, we have to know the questions that you have to know what questions to ask to get them the help that they need. And so I love that you've done this for parents with kids with ADHD, and I'm sure it's probably helpful to just neurodiversity in general. I'm not sure how much your book speaks, beyond just that, or
how many other addendums does it cover? Yeah.
I know. I need to get started on how to ask the right questions about autism, but I'm busy raising my two. So
Yeah, well, we know that.
we know that well. That's kind of why we jumped into the work we do, because we spend so much time with our older child dealing with these things. And, it's funny, you help one child with OCD, you've helped one child. We had a second child in the same family, genetically related, and yet it's a whole different process. And there's other factors involved, and understanding those factors is so important. And
Well, and we're now seeing it going on the senior side of it, the same, almost, it's really odd, you kind of had that cliche about, the parent turns into the child, but there's so much similarities to what's going on in the mental field with the senior population.
oh, and my dad's been in the hospital several times this year. And in the emergency, I want to develop an emergency department for seniors, because they don't know how to treat people with dementia. They're not doing a good job. They're not making a good environment for them. And it's really frustrating just to watch that go down. And they're there to deal with trauma, and especially when you go to a busier hospital and they're dealing with big traumas coming in. Right. They don't know what they're doing with this the population. And if you've got dementia involved, it adds, just like with neurodiversity, it adds another dimension to it. So, but again, like, I was always there to support my mom, because you have to know the questions to ask. You have to know, and yeah, when you don't.
We would probably all agree that there is lots of room for innovation in healthcare of all kinds. So it's nice to spend time talking with people who see that, and I think we really need to work cohesively in this country to set some priorities, and then create working plans within our disciplines and across disciplines. So, and what you all are doing in terms of raising awareness is a vital part of that. So I really want to thank you for having me on today.
Oh yeah. Before we wrap it up, though, do you want to let the audience know, like, the best way to find out more about you? Also, give the name of your book again, and I don't know if there's any special place they need to find that, or not on your bookshelf apparently, but
Well, you know how that is. You're like, okay, here. I went and talked at a local book club, and I probably had 5 copies, and I pulled them and took them with me. So I just need to order some more from the from Amazon. Yes. So the way to reach me, and again, our area of expertise is supporting students and parents, students with anxiety, ADHD, autism, learning differences. Our website is russellcoaching.com. We're easy to find online. And if you go to russellcoaching.com, you can follow us on all the socials and LinkedIn and things like that. We're on Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn and all the things. But for real, more in-depth information about what we do, go to Russell Coaching. Other thing I want to say about our website is that we are very committed to helping parents learn, and become empowered. And so on our website is a link to every single podcast that I've done in the last 5 years, over 50 podcasts that I have donated time to, as well as our very in-depth blog series from lots of different experts and lots of different perspectives. And so there are resources there, as well as information about the academic coaching that we provide for students in grades 1 all the way up through college. So if your kid's struggling with school, if their backpack is disorganized, if you're tired of fighting, if your child is getting C's and D's, but you know they're capable of doing better, take a look at what we do and see if it might be helpful, especially when you get to those middle and high school years where the demands for executive functioning ramp up, but sometimes the student's desire to have the parent involved ramps down. So Russell Coaching, and our phone number is 212-716-1161.
Do you work virtually as well, or just locally?
No, we work across the world, actually. We are the country's largest student coaching practice, and we also have students in South America, in Canada, in Great Britain, in Dubai. So, yep, we work all across the world.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Well, I have one last question for you. Are you
Okay.
still doing the cupcakes at night?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes, I am. Yes. A day does not end here without a cupcake.
Okay, I just wanted to check in with you on that.
That was from a previous interview
Yeah.
Don did through the invisible wheelchair with it.
Well, we both did it. You were there.
We can link to that interview as well. But and again, the name of your book?
Asking the right questions about ADHD.
Cool. Well, again, thank you so much for being part of this. We really enjoyed talking with you, and that really good information.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Hope you've enjoyed what you've heard today. You can view more at focusedhealthyfamily.com. You can see our other podcasts, sign in for our Tuesday tips that you can receive via email or podcast. Check out our upcoming programs and the work that we're doing. And share this with a friend so that they can find out about it. And remember, how you speak to your children today shapes their future and yours.